Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a very spooky Sunday Vibes. It is, in fact, Halloween, the 31st of October. Today, joining me is none other than Dougie Critchley in his Morocco shirt. Is it real?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. Probably not.
We'll say it's real.
Grace went to Morocco without me recently, not invited, and she picked me up this little number.
Oh.
Hakimi on the back. I'm very chuffed with it.
Very cute. And none other than Patrick Van Straten. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm not too bad. How are you, Zach?
I'm good. I'm very good. I'm excited for Halloween. Tomorrow I've got parties. We'll get onto that later. I want to ask you guys about that's going to be my personal question later on. But anyway, Let's get on to the football. And our question today comes from @seeme_baby, and he or she says, talk about teams one injury away from a disaster. Now, I'll give you guys a bit of context, as there's already been some teams that have been hit heavily. Chelsea, for instance, are missing Kante, Pulisic, Werner, and Lukaku already at various points. It should be said, I guess, Pulisic is back now, Kante is back, but the front two are not. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been missing for the majority of Everton's season so far this year. While other stars like Varane, Ferran Torres have also been missing out. Harry Maguire was out for a little bit. So I want to break down some potential injuries and who's kind of the one player that if they got injured, it could ruin their season. Last year, we saw that happen with Virgil van Dijk, and it really affected Liverpool badly. They went out into the market in January and bought two centre-backs that didn't really work in the end. Who's got a person they want to speak about first? Dougie?
Yeah, I don't mind going first. DCL is actually a good shout for this, despite the fact Everton their results have been okay this season. I think their performances have been pretty worrying. Definitely like their possession, I think, is one of the lowest in the Premier Leagues. It's kind of raffable. It's what you'd expect. They have done all right without Richarlison as well at points. But that result against Watford last weekend was just shocking when they were 2-1 up, conceded 4 goals in the second half. Josh King got a hat-trick. Shocking from them. So I'm looking forward to seeing Calvert-Lewin back. But I think the actual best shout for this is Mikel Antonio, to be honest. I think he's been phenomenal at the start of this year. I think he's averaging about a goal contribution every single game in the league and Europa League. West Ham have been awesome. Only lost 2 Premier League games to Brentford, which was a very even game, and to Man United, which now actually looks like quite a poor result given where they've both gone in the last few weeks. But they've absolutely killed it in the Europa League as well. They're unbeaten. I don't think they've even conceded a goal. And only Lyon are the only other side with a 100% record in that competition. And Mikel Antonio's been so good in the league. And if you said 4 years ago that at 31, Mikel Antonio,
right back as well.
Exactly, an injury-prone right-back would be one of the best strikers in the Premier League on form this season, I'd have laughed you out of town. He's been awesome. And I think only Ronaldo and Salah are taking more shots per 90 than him. I think he's 7th for key passes, over 2.5 per game, absolutely running the show. And, it's a small sample size, so don't go too crazy on this, but his expected goals and assists per 90 ratio is the same as Kylian Mbappe so far this year.
It's nuts. It's over 1.
It's 1.1, which is absolutely insane. And West Ham have been like awesome, such great team spirit. I'm really enjoying watching them play. I think their fans are having an awesome time this season. And if he got injured, they could play Bowen centrally, they could play Yarmolenko centrally. I don't know whether Vlasic played a bit of number 9 in Russia.
But it wouldn't quite work.
It just
as
wouldn't
well
be
as
quite
it
the same.
Antonio,
and I think their drop-off towards their next most productive player this season, which I think has probably been Ben Rama, is quite dramatic. So Antonio, wrap him in cotton wool, and he does have a terrible injury record. I think over the last 4 or 5 years, he's only 1 year where he hasn't missed at least 10 games. Yeah. Which is so it's going to happen at some stage. And I'm surprised that they keep on using him so deep into games at the moment as well.
Do you not think Declan Rice is a shout for West Ham? Like if you had to rank one above the other, I'd probably put Rice.
I probably would as well, just because of the lack of depth in the position.
Yeah, they did bring Alex Kralin on loan from Spartak Moscow, who I hadn't watched a lot of in Russia, but I think he played in the Carabao Cup the other day and he was pretty good. I think he could do a job alongside Soucek. They could play Noble there. Whereas I think the drop-off between Antonio as that sort of physical presence to Bowen, I think Bowen's a great player, but it's probably not his game, is quite dramatic. So I would go Antonio, but I think Declan Rice has been probably one of the outstanding central midfielders in the league so far.
Well, this is where I guess David Moyes earns his money as well, right? Is making sure he rotates them enough to make sure that none of them gets injured, especially with Antonio's record. Declan Rice ain't too bad. He obviously had that injury towards the end of last season, and they made it for the Euros in time. But Antonio is the big one. Have you got anyone that springs to mind, Pat?
Well, I guess it's difficult to kind of ballpark how important it is. Like in the Antonio case, what's the difference that it makes? Well, at the moment, I think they're probably the 4th best side in the league. And so we could say they're like Champions League contenders. And if they were to lose one of those guys, maybe they go down to the 8th best team in the league or something. So it comes down to like what you see as the bigger difference, because there are other players who I think are maybe going to keep their sides in the division. So for instance, like I don't know if Newcastle are going to stay up, but if they do stay up, it'll be in large part down to Allan Saint-Maximin, right? So if they were to lose him, they would be in serious trouble. Unless they go out and make a game-changing signing in like January.
Which they could do.
Yeah, but I mean, all their ball progression goes through him. He's the only person who can really beat somebody on the dribble. Like, he basically is the only player you really worry about when you face him, because while Wilson is a goal scorer, like Wilson can't create chances for himself. Like, he's not a dribbler. Like, he's not going to beat three guys. Allan Saint-Maximin is basically the only person you have to be concerned about in that team. So I don't know. Like, I think that you take him out, and I just think they're like comfortably a championship side, and they might be a championship side even with him. Arsenal, I think like Thomas Partey's an obvious kind of shout. Like, I look at Arsenal's midfield depth, and it's just basically non-existent. Like, with Torreira gone, Guendouzi gone, Arsenal's midfielders this season are Xhaka, currently out injured, yeah. Partey, Lokonga, and we played some Ainsley Maitland-Niles there. Yeah. And then you're getting into academy guys, like some of whom are highly rated, like Miguel Aziz.
Is El Neni not so?
Oh yeah, sorry, El Neni as well.
But that like, sums it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. El Neni too. But like, whatever. There's nobody in the team who, none of those guys really have ever put up big defensive numbers in midfield. Maitland-Niles has done it at fullback, but not in midfield. Partey is the most important progressive passer on the side, like even when Xhaka's there, but especially with Xhaka out. Lokonga, good passer, but zero defensive presence and still very, very young. So, yeah, I just look at that team and I think, yeah, if you don't have Partey in there, I don't know what you do. I think it's one of those situations where you're like, you might need to radically rethink formation and stuff as well. Like, it's kind of like if I guess if Brighton hadn't bought Mwepu, then you'd say what would happen if Basuma went out, and you think you don't really have any presence then in the middle of the park. You don't really have anybody who's an out-and-out defender, though you've got a bunch of midfielders. So I think those guys are kind of, they really make their teams tick, and I think Bruno Fernandes is another person in that category. Like, if you take Bruno Fernandes out, I suppose that in a pinch you could probably play Pogba where he is, and in some ways it would simplify things, right? You wouldn't have to find a way to get both those people into your team. But I don't know, like Man United were quite bad before Bruno came along, and they've been pretty good since he came along. And even though they're in a bit of a crisis at the moment, if there's one player you'd have faith in dragging them out of it, it's Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, I mean, creativity-wise, he's essentially doing it all for them.
But also the intensity, defensively. Mm-hmm. Like, how many of their midfielders or their attackers have proper defensive intensity? The only real one is Bruno.
And towards the end of last season as well, we saw himself working himself into the ground essentially as well. I think the question is really interesting because it depends on what team, right? Like, if you're a Manchester City or a Chelsea, or whatever, if you lose a player, you're still probably going to get Champions League football, even if you're losing one of your key players.
Yeah,
whereas
especially
you said,
this season.
With Newcastle United, if you lose your key player in Allan Saint-Maximin,
you
could go down. West Ham, okay, they're not going to go down, but they might not reach European football if they don't have Antonio or Declan Rice or something. But while saying that, if you lose maybe the best player in the world right now, Mohamed Salah at Liverpool, you're not going to be scoring as many goals as Liverpool are at the moment, where he's essentially creating chances out of nothing. Like, I think back to that ball against Watford with outside the foot, that it's just basically down to pure talent on the way he's played that as well. Another one where he dribbled past about 5 different players with some, like, just by not necessarily skillful, just by like small touches. It was so impressive. But yeah, Mohamed Salah, I think for him, if he was to kind of get injured with Liverpool, and it has to be said as well, his injury record isn't bad. It would amazing. It would be very, very surprising if he actually picked up something. But yeah, if he got taken out of the Liverpool squad, I think it's any team that loses their best player is going to suffer in some way, shape or form. I mean, we saw it last year with Van Dijk as well, we mentioned earlier, and Liverpool, and how that kind of was a big knock on for them, and they still finished third in the league, above Chelsea. But you saw how it took out their chances of winning the title. Right now, when you've got Mohamed Salah, the best player in the world, playing like he is, they are the title contenders at the moment, or one of the favourites, along with City and Chelsea.
Can I ask you a Chelsea question?
Go on.
Because like with the Liverpool thing, you're like, look, this is an attack where like everybody knows each other, they know what the other people want to do. So you take Salah out, who's also the best player, it doesn't work as well. But with Chelsea, like, Lukaku, I kind of want to ask you about the Lukaku situation because like the attack isn't quite gelling around him yet, and wasn't in the team last weekend. You score 7, admittedly, you know, against a very bad team, like down to 10. But like, I don't know, like. How big a miss would it be if Lukaku got a really long-term injury for you? Like, are there not some ways in which you could argue that like Havertz as a forward almost suits the way you want to play more at the moment?
Yeah, I think. Look, we spent the whole of last season essentially without a striker, without an out-and-out striker like Romelu Lukaku is. We didn't play with that kind of build of a striker who can obviously one of his best assets is probably running in behind and stuff like that. And we're kind of used to that anyway. But we've been using him much more as a target man, which personally isn't something that I think we should be doing. I think we should be mixing it up a lot more than we currently are when he's playing. However, the fact that he's being played in that role, we're not used to it yet, as you mentioned. So the fact that he's out, I don't think matters too much just yet. Obviously, in say 3 months' time, if he came out then, he was much more integral to the team, and he would start those partnerships that he was just starting to create with Mason Mount, with Havertz as well. When they're a bit more solid and kind of everyone knows what they're doing, they know what Lukaku is doing, that certain run he makes, etc., etc. It would be much more. It would be much worse than it is now. Because right now, we've just gone back to what we were doing last season, and we were absolutely fine last season with how we were doing it. Because we've got Havertz, we've got Ziyech. Ziyech can barely get a game, to be quite honest. Callum Hudson-Odoi, who's now actually at times playing his preferred position. So it's not bad yet. As I said, in 5 months' time, once we are more used to playing with Lukaku and knowing his strengths and understanding the way this guy wants to play, and Chelsea's football essentially becomes centred around Lukaku being our striker. Because at the moment it isn't. At the moment it's still very much just like, as you've seen, I think Chelsea have had 18 different goal scorers this season already. And so everyone's chipping in from different areas.
Big numbers,
Exactly. And that's not to say Lukaku's been bad, because I don't think he has either. I think he's started the season pretty well. I think opportunities have maybe been a bit rough, and as I mentioned, I don't think we're necessarily playing to his strengths at the moment. I think Antonio Conte said as much as well, and when he was asked about it. But yeah, I think in 5 months' time or so, when the squad is more used to what Lukaku brings, and we're essentially playing around Lukaku being our focal point, then it's going to be a bit of an issue. Yeah. However, we might not ever do that. Like with the way Chelsea are playing, it almost feels like we're kind of. It's not a square peg in a round hole at all, because Lukaku can do it and he can do it fine. We saw it against Arsenal. He can play as the kind of target man focal up point, top and be having someone on his back or whatever. But I think personally we probably need to mix it up more so with him. And as you said, like Chelsea are in a pretty good position because we can go with times where we lose N'Golo Kante and we still manage to be okay.
And Kovacic,
but still, a squad with Kante is always a better squad. Timo Werner's out at the moment as well. Christian Pulisic has been out for ages. Chelsea have so many players. I actually kind of worry personally, like if we got a big term injury to Rudiger. I'd maybe be a bit more concerned.
He's the man at the back now, isn't he?
Yeah, because right now those other two positions, the centre back one and the right centre back one, can be kind of changed, and they have been between Trevor Chalobah, between Thiago Silva, Christensen, Azpilicueta. Yeah. We've seen Allan Saint-Maximin as well at times, but right now that left centre back one, because majority of our centre backs are also right-footed, so they don't necessarily fit that role as much. And Rudiger is just very exceptional at what he does.
But Sarr isn't, right?
Sarr is left-footed, and we have seen him play there recently. Okay. But and I still think Sarr's actually he surprised me. He surprised me, and I think maybe more time under Tuchel he can get better as well. But he's not Antonio Rudiger.
Sure.
And especially like with one-on-one defending as well at times. I don't know if there's someone better in the Premier League than Rudiger is on that left centre-back side. So yeah, if we lost him, I'd maybe be a bit more concerned, because I think we'd be much weaker than if by losing Lukaku. Yeah.
The good news about your injuries to Lukaku and Werner right now is you've played so many difficult fixtures already. You've actually got quite a relatively easy run coming up. Like you've played Liverpool away, Arsenal away, Spurs away. You played City at home. And I think you've got Leicester in a couple of weeks' time. And then United. But other than that, it's fairly easy games. And I think you'll carry on. It seems like you're getting more into your stride. I wasn't that impressed with you in the games pre-Norwich, to be totally honest, and Norwich were abysmal in that game.
No, I agree. I think Chelsea went for a period where essentially Brentford especially lucky to get 3 points. Like
Brentford, even the game against Villa where you won 3-0, I didn't think that great.
Oh yeah,
the Southampton game as well. But I think because you've got, I think, a better squad than Liverpool, you're less likely to be derailed by an injury to Mo Salah. Going back to Salah, just because also Harvey Elliott being out as well, he's probably someone who could play on the right wing. Whereas if Salah gets injured, you're playing maybe Jota out of position, you're playing Minamino, Origi. Like the drop-off is so considerable there. And you mentioned Van Dijk as well. Now they've got Konate, who played, I thought, really well against Man United, actually, in a bit of a breezy game for him. Then I think the depth is much better there as well. So Salah feels like amongst the top 3 teams, the sort of title contenders this year, he feels like the one injury that could ruin your title challenge.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, because I guess when you look at the City squad, right, they're already interchanging as it is at times. I mean, Raheem Sterling is kind of the one guy that can feel maybe a bit annoyed with the minutes that he's not getting. I think everyone else has been pretty fairly used. I'm just trying to think if I'm missing anyone.
I mean, De Bruyne's had his injury issues this year. Hasn't really affected them as much as it has in previous years, I think, because Bernardo Silva's been so excellent despite the fact he nearly left in the summer, which is so impressive.
I think he still wants to as well.
Still wants to potentially leave as well, although I don't know whether that would now change that he's starting most games. And Phil Foden's taken another leap forward as well.
Oh my God, Phil Foden's another.
He's outrageous.
Maybe a Phil Foden injury could be something. But again, it's just nothing. Like City have so many fantastic players that someone else just fills in and is absolutely fine. And you see it. I mean, Bernardo Silva went from a winger at times to playing centre mid, and against the Chelsea, he was playing DM. To be quite honest, at times it was ridiculous.
Losing Rodri would be a problem.
But would they not put Fernandinho there?
He hasn't looked his normal self.
He's old.
This year, though.
He's so old. For years we were like, he's going to start falling off, and he did fall off, like, pretty spectacularly. And like, he's also not fit, like, a lot of the time. Like, there's nobody who covers that midfield role. And like Gundogan's best performances, like, it's telling that the one time where everyone suddenly got back on the Gundogan train and was like, yeah, he's great, was when he had license to get forward.
And De Bruyne was out.
Yeah, so I mean, if you lose Rodri there, like, I back Pep to figure something out, but like, as much as everyone's like, oh, De Bruyne plays in midfield and like Bernardo Silva plays in midfield, like, you can't start those guys as a midfield in a really big game. You just can't do it. You need some presence in there.
Am I mental in thinking he's done John Stones there before?
In DM. He's played a couple of games at DM.
He has played John
Rarely,
Stones,
though. I think Cancelo would be a big loss, to be honest. Not because I don't think Walker's brilliant. I just think Cancelo is pretty unique in right-backs in terms of what he offers. I know Trent obviously gets fantastic creative numbers as well, but you don't see him quite pick up the same positions that Cancelo does, really coming into that midfield zone so frequently. So I think Cancelo would be a big loss.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, all three of the big boys have a player, I guess, that if they lose, could essentially derail their season. But again, as I mentioned, they're still going to be getting probably top 4. Like, they're still going to be at Champions League. They may not win the Premier League, but it's already going to be a battle to do that, even with their players there. Other teams that I think should have a mention: Leeds.
Yeah.
How do we feel about them?
I put them for 6th at the start of the season, so I'm feeling like an absolute.
But I think that's fair enough, based on last season.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
They were.
I think I just went. I quite liked their summer business, but I probably didn't take into account their depth, which it just isn't the same as even middling Premier League.
Well, a lot of their squad is still the same players they had from the Championship, and that's not to say they're not Premier League ready, because obviously they are. Having look at last season, but you do look at the midfield and think, okay, a Calvin Phillips injury here.
Yeah, and they've had Bamford out at the top. Yeah. Jack Harrison's lost a bit of form. Luke Ayling, I think he's like so crucial to the way they play. Robin Koch has been out at the back. Like, they are just sort of patched over at the moment, and it's just not working. I think they've only won one game, which was against Watford, where they were quite lucky to win because Watford had that goal disallowed, and then Xisco was fired, I think, afterwards. They've had heavy thrashings to Liverpool and Man United. I think they've drawn against teams. No, they lost to Southampton. They drew against Wolves, Burnley as well. Like, they just haven't had the same attacking impetus as last year, and their defensive solidity has just been all over the place as well. I think only Leicester and Norwich are conceding more shots than them in the Premier League, and that is like that's a sort of result of the way Bielsa plays. Like, it is very high risk, and they will occasionally concede a lot of shots. But when you've got a goalkeeper like Meslier, who is, I think, a fantastic shot stopper, but he does have the occasional howler in there.
Still very young as well.
Still very young. Yeah, not hanging. He's not the problem here. It's mainly their injuries. So yeah, Leeds is a little bit of a sad story so far this season.
But again, like, they're not going to get relegated. They probably weren't, like, as you said, 6th again. Although, would have been a very big improvement.
If Newcastle spend 60 million in January, that's probably going to save them.
Will it? They've got to spend it well and integrate those players. Like, and it's quite hard to just pick up like a couple of players in January who just save your season.
According to the rumours, there were rumours about Eden Hazard going to Newcastle in January.
Well, I mean, if it's the Eden Hazard it's been the last couple of seasons, it won't really do much for them. Like, I mean, Leeds are an interesting one. The good thing about, like, when you're a team slightly lower down the league is, like, your players are more replaceable. Yeah. Like, if Mo Salah gets injured, there's not another Mo Salah out there you can just find. If you're like a a kind of mid-table club and your defensive midfielder gets injured, you can go out in January and find a defensive midfielder, or get a winger or get a fullback, because you've got loans available to you, you've got more money than basically, any of the clubs around Europe, and you can go and pinch those guys off Liga 1 clubs or Bundesliga teams. So in a way, I think if Leeds lost Calvin Phillips to an injury at this stage, they'd only really have to muddle through till January, and then they probably could go and find a reasonable replacement, whether it be a loan or a relatively cheap signing. With a club like Newcastle, I just don't know, because it's how are they going to play? I think that the squad is awful.
I think that's also the same as Watford, right? If they lost Ismaila Sarr.
Well, Emmanuel Dennis has been pretty good.
Has been good.
To keep them up.
Yeah,
I don't
know. Watford have put in some really surprising performances. I think they've been a lot better than most people thought.
But it's absolute mayhem, a Watford game. You've no idea. You've no idea whether you're going to watch your team absolutely thump them
or get thumped.
Well, yeah, or they're just going to turn it on, because their attackers are really, really good, but that team it's still weak as hell. Yeah. You'd still put Leeds way ahead of them, way ahead of Newcastle, way ahead of Burnley. Yeah, Norwich Burnley are an absolute disaster. Well, Norwich are on track to be one of the worst Premier League teams of all time.
I could definitely see happening. I said they'd survive. I mean, Burnley, the big one for them is, in my opinion, Ben Mee or Tarkowski. You've always seen that last year when Ben Mee got injured. Defensively, they were awful, to be quite frank. The other one as well up top for them is Chris Wood.
He hasn't got that many goals this year, though.
Yeah. He hasn't started as well as he was last year, for sure, but everything still goes through him. He's their target man. I mean,
but just play a centre-back up front. It literally doesn't matter. You need someone to hold, but I know what you mean. They can't get up the pitch without hoofing it to Chris Wood.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like Sean Dyche's tactics before the game is telling to Dwight McNeil, kick the ball on. And hope he wins it, and hope he can do something with it.
Did you see Cornet's goal last weekend?
Yeah, he's ridiculous.
That was so nice.
And he's also
it's such a weird signing.
It is such a weird signing, and it's
maybe
we see it as well.
It's super random.
It's a bit like Saint-Maximin though, where you're just watching this team that's absolutely miserable, and then welded to the top of it, there's just one guy who's fun.
I have a weird love for Burnley. The fact that they are so old school with the way they play their football, and the fact they've just added this guy who's so different compared to the whole team is crazy. But no, for them, I think Ben Mee or Tarkowski getting injured is awful. Any other shouts in the Premier League before we go to Europe at all?
Tony,
Ivan Toney at Brentford. Yes,
though I think that he's. I'm not going to say he's been overpraised this season, but I think he's been praised at the expense of Mbeumo. Who actually, I think, while he hasn't got a very good goal return so far, I think he's still on 2.
He's hit the post 4 times.
He's on 5 expected goals. Yeah. So it's going to happen at some point. He's incredibly young. They've been able to get him in behind so much this season. And actually, when you look at Tony's numbers haven't been great as a striker. They've been great as a facilitator. His expected assist numbers are much higher than his expected goal numbers. Yeah. And one of the reasons for that is because he's got really good options around him, and he's a shockingly skilled passer. So I don't know. I think if they lost Mbeumo, that would really take away a significant threat they have. If they lost Tony, it would just take away the focal point of their attack, the guy that everything goes through at some point, and a huge physical threat. So I don't know. That would. I don't know if they'd be in trouble, because they're Brentford. They're smart and
Thomas Frank as well.
And same position as Leeds,
Yes.
There are actually tons and tons of young strikers this season in Ligue 1 who are tearing it up. Genuinely, 5 or 6 who would all be really interesting signings. And you could easily imagine Brentford going out and spending 10 million in January on just a 22-year-old out of Ligue 1.
Might do it anyway, to be quite honest. Even if he wasn't injured, just for backup.
And they've got Visser, who's barely played. So they've got more guys coming. They get goals out of Canos.
Yes. Now, obviously, let's go to Europe. A few teams that we can look at. We got down here Borussia Dortmund.
Well, Erling Haaland is potentially out until 2022.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think it's confirmed yet. It might be confirmed by Sunday.
I did not know that, no.
But yeah, he's had some injury issues, came back for that game against Ajax and has exacerbated
Lost
it.
4-0.
And that was a shocking performance by Dortmund. They are a really weird team, Dortmund. Going forward, they are phenomenal to watch at times. I think they've only got better to watch under Marco Rose, but they are so immature in the way they defend. Set pieces, they are so bad at defending set pieces. They don't know how to stem the flow of counter-attacks. Yeah, and their injury issues for years now. I don't know what they do at Dortmund. They seem to get really bad injuries all the time. And at the moment, they've got Murray's been out long-term, Reyna's out, Guerrero's out, Haaland's now out, and you're just because the Bundesliga title race, or at least on paper this year, is very close. I think they're only 1 point behind Bayern at the moment, and it's that attack that's keeping them in it. I think their defence, only about 4 or 5 sides have conceded more goals than them. So they really needed Haaland to stay fit, especially with Daniel Marlon not really getting the returns that some of his good players deserve so far. So yeah, it's tricky for Dortmund, and that display against Ajax felt seismic in terms of like where the two clubs are going this year. Like Ajax, I think, are contenders for a quarter-final. I think Dortmund would be lucky to get past the last 16, to be honest, and especially if Haaland's not fit.
Well, I mean, again, there's only so much they can do in January as well. To as we kind of mentioned with Mohamed Salah, like there's only so much you can do to replace Haaland. Though that being said, as well, I remember seeing some stats where it's like when Haaland hasn't been in the Borussia Dortmund squad, they're still kind of creating the same chances. They're still giving it there. So maybe they could go out and get someone to do it. I mean, Marlon can play centre forward as well, can't he? And I don't know how long the Reina injury is.
Yeah, I think he's been out for about 5 or 6 games now, and hopefully he's coming back quite soon. But last year, with Sancho and elite creators like that in the side, it would be a different story. But now it just feels Sancho, like a lot is resting on Marco Reus and Jude Bellingham.
God, at 18 years old, Jude Bellingham, bless him. We've also got Real Madrid down here as well. They're 3 points obviously behind Real Sociedad, but they do have a game in hand. Now, if an injury came for Benzema, it would not be pretty for the Madristas, would it?
No, I mean, I think he's been involved in 16 league goals out of 22, 23 maybe they've scored, something ridiculous like that. At the same time, he's been... Like, the only thing really that separates Real Madrid and Barcelona this season is, like, lucky finishing. Like, Real Madrid have been finishing, like, above expected rates, and it's meant that they've kind of dodged the crisis club thing, and partially as well that's because, like, Barcelona have been at actual state. But, like, you watch, El Clasico from last week, and you just see, like, a Real Madrid, like, light years ahead of Barcelona. People after the game were like, this says everything about the difference between these two sides right now. And I was like... I thought Barcelona were fine.
Yeah. Just missed their chances.
Yeah, I thought Real Madrid were quite unimpressive and were lucky to get the win.
It's a really dull game, to be honest.
Yeah, like there's no reason to watch these games now. Like, they're miserable. Like,
the previous week was just Lionel Messi, essentially.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. Benzema goes out of Real Madrid team. They are in serious trouble, and they have to work something else out. Though I think, like, Ancelotti's going to be better about doing that than previous managers who are like, no. Like, one of the problems with Zidane is he's like, I want to play the same guys every week, and if I can't, I'll get really cross about it. Whereas Ancelotti will work with what he has, so he'll put Jovic in or something. Like, he'll work something out. Like, but
Mariano, is he still at Real Madrid?
Mariano's still there, yeah. Boy, Mayoral still at Roma, I think.
But he'd obviously be a huge loss, as with Casemiro.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Real Madrid, I just don't. I basically with Real Madrid, if they lose Benzema, they're definitely not going to win the title. As it is, they might not win the title anyway. They're certainly not going to win the Champions League. So, in a sense, I don't really think it's that big a difference. Like, there's a part of me that's like, so what?
It's like kind of what we mentioned earlier about a couple of the Premier League teams that, like, if you lose one of your stars, okay, you're battling for the Premier League anyway, but now you're still going to get top 4. It's not the end of the world, as it is maybe for some of the other clubs that could get relegated. Atletico Madrid, Jan Oblak.
Unreal.
He's been ridiculous this season.
Did have a really dodgy game the other day, though.
He does. He
against
does
Real
have
Sociedad,
that,
was it? Yeah.
He does have them every now and again where he can be fantastic for a season, but you can also pick 3 games out of that season where he was not at his best form. It feels kind of like the Jan Oblak hype has died down in recent years, but he is still incredibly important to Atletico Madrid, isn't it?
Oh, unreal! Yeah, I think he was close to saving like 10 expected goals last year. And if he wasn't in goal, I don't think they'd win the title because it was really, really tight in the end. Their drop-off in the second half of the season was really quite shocking. And they haven't started this year particularly well either. Griezmann's not really working as a signing. It's basically reliant on Suarez doing 2 things a game, which is just putting in the ball in the back of the net. Like, his finishing is insane. He's pretty bad at everything else now. But Oblak's would be a massive loss. I think their backup goalkeeper is Benjamin Lecomte. Who I remember looking at his stats a few years ago. He's been in France most of the time, and he looks like a fairly promising keeper. But I think he's over 30 now, and now he's playing back up to the best goalkeeper in the world, probably, along with Alisson, I would argue. So, Atletico Madrid without Oblak, they probably won't win the title as it is. They've already, there's a little gap that's appeared. But yeah, he would be finito.
Fair play. Other mentions: Bayer Leverkusen, Florian Wirtz. him missing. Obviously, he's had 4 goals and 6 assists in just 8 Bundesliga games so far this season. He's been fantastic for them. Mönchengladbach have playing some unbelievable football as well. Though I don't necessarily think there's... If they lost one player in particular, they'd be terrible.
Yeah, they've got a lot of moving parts in that forward line that can come in. And Marcus Thuram's not at his best year, but Brilon Bolo's still there, Alisson Player.
Absolutely put Bayern to the sword.
Have you seen the highlights of that
Oh
yet?
my God.
It was insane.
Is it the second goal where the football is ridiculous? I mean, a couple of their goals I like that, but I remember seeing the second one in particular and thinking, oh my Lord, this is
And it was like a full-strength Bayern side, pretty much. And they were making some basic errors, but at the same time, it was just great football from Gladbach, and their finishing was insane.
Well, I mean, Bayern, Lewandowski.
Yeah.
But I mean, it kind of happens every year. We just go, they still win the league.
I think they'd still win the league with Choupo-Moting playing 34 games.
Yeah, for sure.
I think quite often I'll look at a Bayern result and they've won a game like 5-1 and I'll be like, oh, how many goals has Lewandowski scored? And I've seen he hasn't started. Like Choupo-Moting started and got a brace. Like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter at all. PSG.
Nah.
I mean,
PSG could do with an injury.
PSG, they got Sergio Ramos out at the moment.
PSG
not played a game yet.
Yeah, who cares? Like PSG would actually be totally fine if one of their forward players got injured. I genuinely believe that they need to do like a 3 at the back or something.
To fit right in.
Yeah, and just basically be like the only guys. we're going to play our front 3.
Yeah.
And only those guys and Mr. Hakimi here get to attack, and everybody else defends.
What an honour!
Play a really defensive setup. Other than that, you have Nuno Mendes playing left wing back. You play Verratti and Gay or Herrera or Danilo Pereira, and then everybody else they're no attacking for you. You just stay back. Verratti just pings balls because I think at a certain point you have to do that with that team. I just don't know. Otherwise, how does it happen? They need to play Andre Villas-Boas would have, where he'd have been everyone defends except for 3 people, and they score 20 goals each, and we win the league. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a great shout. Just thinking Serie A as well. Might as well head over to Italy quickly. Lazio, Immobile. Yeah. He's always been their kind of the star man for them. If he's out, I don't know who'll be scoring their goals for them. Juventus.
Whatever.
It's quite a team effort now.
Yeah, it's not too bad if they lost one player in particular.
I think Chiesa would be pretty bad for their sort of spirit. He seems so much more motivated than his teammates at the moment, particularly in attack. I don't know, they're having a weird season, Juventus. Just as you think they're slightly getting going, then they had a really shocking result against Sassuolo in midweek. I don't know. They're going through a weird time, Juve. Maybe one
De Ligt, possibly. Yeah. Then they have to start a very old defence.
You'd think Max Allegri's return would make their defence so much better, but it hasn't really happened so far, and I don't know why. Maybe he just needs more time. But this guy that I follow on Twitter called Carlo Garganese, who got on Continental Club a month ago, just calls him a dinosaur, Allegri. He says the tactics just don't work anymore.
For a year, just on the bed, not updating his tactics.
Yeah, and he just says he's wasting a lot of very good talent.
Jesus.
That's his words.
There you go. Yeah. AC Milan, I guess Tomori's been pretty good for them at the back.
He'd be big.
Inter, Brozovic or Martinez.
Yeah.
Those are the ones coming in my head.
Probably Barella, I think, maybe over the course of the season as well. I think he's their top creator so far. Skriniar as well. I mean, there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of key parts in that Inter side. I think they kind of be all right because they've got Joaquin Correa who could replace Lautaro Martinez. True. Maybe Dzeko over a course of a season because they don't really have that physical presence up front anymore. And his finishing's been pretty good so far.
He's been outrageous
for once. Well, his finishing at least. He's a good striker.
There we have it. Then those are, I guess, the players that if they got injured, your team is. Anyway, moving on to quick fire questions then, and this first one comes from @Vasi Detalina. Yeah, 8. Sure. Should Man City or Arsenal try and sign Victor Osimhen, even if Napoli asked for £100 million?
That's a lot of money.
He's good. He's all right.
He's great.
Is he £100 million worth as a striker? No.
Possibly.
Especially for Arsenal. Saying for Man City and then for Arsenal to spend that kind of money is a big ask.
No, but that's Arsenal's biggest need next summer. Arsenal next summer probably need one midfield. Arsenal next summer, if they spent their entire budget on one striker, that would probably be a pretty good use of Arsenal's budget next summer. They need a game-changing attacker.
I just don't see Arsenal spending $100 million.
Well, neither do I, but I didn't see them spending $70 million either. It doesn't matter. I don't think he'd go to Arsenal.
Okay.
Would
you take him at Arsenal right now for $100 million, Osimhen?
Jesus. I mean,
I don't think it's going to happen at Man City. I don't think Man City have bigger targets.
Assuming we don't renew Lacazette and stuff possibly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Arsenal need a game-changing attacker. They do not have it. Like that is the best way to make a side better. We all talk about they need a centre back and they could do with an upgrade at right back. The best way to make a team better is an elite attacker. Like if you want to fix a team, the first thing you do, buy a couple of elite attackers. That's what you should always do. Arsenal don't have any. Like they have some potentials for the future in Saka and Smith Rowe. They have guys who have flashes of brilliance. Martinelli, he just needs to stay fit. Like they have guys with flashes of brilliance in them, like Pepe and Odegaard. And they've got guys who actually like are pretty reliable, like old players, like Aubameyang and Lacazette. What they don't have is just a person who drags the entire level of the attack up. They don't have that person. And Osimhen, particularly in the last, since he basically got to Napoli, has been a player like that. And he's incredibly young. He's got every physical tool you could want him to have. He's a surprisingly good passer, given that, we always thought of him as a striker who plays off the last man, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, he's kind of the complete package. If they asked for 100 mil for him, I don't think you'd have too much grounds to beat them down on the price.
It's rare because he cost 70 million for Napoli.
Yes, you're not.
And it's rare for a 70 million signing to kind of work out almost perfectly. And bar his injuries, it kind of has. He has put them in the hunt this year. I think he's been much better than Insigne. Mertens is now probably over the hump. Lozano's still sort of not consistent enough. So Osimhen's really the reason, along with Anguissa in midfield, who's made a massive difference.
It's been outrageous.
Osimhen's the reason that they're top of the table, I think. Or at least it's very close. Maybe they're level with Milan. Either way, it's very close. But yeah, Osimhen, I think he's probably not worth £100 million just because I don't think many players are, and I think it rarely works out.
Haaland could be going for 70 million, obviously release cost as well.
He'd be in that second bracket of strikers that I'd definitely consider if I was a Man City and I couldn't get Haaland for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And also, I guess Napoli need to make a profit when they've spent 70 mil, right?
Yeah.
How many young strikers, how many strikers under 25 would you say are better than him in world football? That's the question.
It's a very good shout. It's a very, very good shout.
Because I'm like Mbappe,
Haaland, Mbappe.
You're getting to Rashford, Greenwood, no. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good shout. It's a very good shout.
That's the thing. I don't know. I really like Isak. I really like DCL. I really like Rashford. But I think Rashford's probably the only player of those guys who, and I don't think you can really class him as a striker anymore. Yeah, against all those players, I think who is a better striker here?
Are we missing someone obvious?
Probably.
Almost. It's like a couple of weeks ago when we said about the best left winger and we all forgot Son.
Oh, well.
Which we do apologise for. Anyway, okay.
Love Son.
Our next question at Colour HD. What is your opinion on Xavi potentially taking over at Barcelona? Obviously, Ronald Koeman has now been sacked. I think that's the best response.
Exactly it,
Is what it is.
Who gives a
It's going to happen one day. I think he's picked a very weird time to do it. That job, I think I said it on Continental Club on Friday, that job would have been there for him in 10, 15 years' time. For the next 10, 15 years is what I mean. He could have got a lot more experience in that time. Yeah. Club legends going back to clubs, it's obviously got mixed experience. Zidane obviously did very well with an unbelievable squad. Xavi doesn't have an unbelievable squad right now. Solskjaer hasn't worked out. Pirlo wasn't given enough time, arguably. So I'm just meh. He'll command a lot of respect. He'll play the Barcelona way, which they probably need to get away from. And a lot of the young players will idolise him. So that's a good start. But as for his tactics, no clue.
Yeah.
Or how well it's going to go. I know what his tactics will be, but how well it's going to go.
Not to say it's the same, and it's not the same. I don't mean to bring it back to Chelsea, but it's kind of similar to maybe to Lampard. I would have liked to have seen him maybe have got a bit more experience before he got the job. And as you said, that job's kind of always going to be there, even more so for Xavi.
Yeah.
Especially when he's yet to manage in Europe as well. That's not to put any hate on the league that he's managing currently. But I'd like to have seen him maybe try another team, just so we can understand what kind of tactics he's properly playing in this space, and maybe at a lower league or another club lower down in Spain to kind of understand. And then you can kind of see what kind of project he's bringing to Barcelona, because he says it's tiki-taka, he says it's Pep Guardiola philosophy and all this, because that's what he's played under. But you just don't know until you properly see it under a stress test.
But also, the strikers that they have don't really suit that style anymore. It's Aguero, Depay, Luke de Jong, Martin Braithwaite. It's just not great in terms of number nines. If they're full strength forward lines available, they can get stuff going this season. Their midfield's still pretty good. Their defence is we shouldn't really talk about their defence. It's better if we don't. But their whole team is a very weird mishmash right now.
I mean, yeah, I just don't see it lasting that long if he does go there now. Okay, moving on to our next one. Sazybot14 says, we should talk about Josh Cavallo. I hope I have pronounced that right. It's a huge moment for sport. Obviously, he is the first openly gay footballer to publicly announce it. Plays in Australia. It's amazing. Like, it's brilliant. It takes a lot of pressure on him, and it takes a lot of guts and everything to kind of do that, because we've never seen that before in the kind of professional game of football. I mean, I want to say, what do we think of it? I think we all agree it's fantastic. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
But any comments, I guess?
I mean, it's so ridiculous that like in 2021 there's one out footballer like that we know of like playing in a top league like that. It's ridiculous to me. Like it just tells you so much about like where the fandom still is on this, where clubs still are on this. Like, but it just goes to show like what I always think, which is that like clubs, organisations, leagues, media outlets, fans, half of these people don't really give a about like anything beyond just like whether their team wins or loses, and like they only like pay lip service to ideas of equality, and it's always down to players to lead the conversation. It's always down to players to do it, and like to take the kind of burden onto themselves, like with Sterling and Rashford. You know, like it. I don't know. I'm glad that he felt he could come out. I'm glad he has come out. But I also just think, one out guy like in football is just like cartoonish. Like well, it's embarrassing for football.
Hopefully, for ages it's always, and I don't know whether I feel right, but I can kind of comment on it as much. But it's like for ages we've kind of everyone's been like, oh, who's going to be the first? Who's going to be the first? And obviously now it's happened, and obviously all of us wish him the absolute best with how it goes and everything. But hopefully now this is someone that people can look to and be like, okay, like the first has happened. Now I can see how. Well,
the reception to it's been so
it's been amazing.
Good on social media. I mean, as it should be, obviously. At least, I'm sure there's some idiots that should always be ignored on social media, but the general people that matter on social media have responded as you'd expect and as you'd hope. So hopefully that inspires people that are also gay to come out if they want to, but at the same time if they don't want to,
exactly, it's personal choice.
It's so much better now that we've gone away from that tabloid culture of 5 or 6 years ago where we were effectively hunting for gay footballers and wanting them to come out so we could sell papers and make it a story, and you'd have footballers being like, I know there's gay footballers, just to sell more stories. And I was just like, that culture wasn't particularly nice. So if people want to come out, it's great, and I'm glad that Josh has felt comfortable to do it.
Amazing, and we wish him the absolute best for it. At Ronnie Coleman 62, are Arsenal actually getting better, or is this another false dawn?
Monsieur Patrice?
They've been a little bit better recently, and certainly they're taking a lot of shots this season. I think there are 3 teams in the league taking more shots than Arsenal right now, and Chelsea are not one of them. So I don't know. I think they're probably good enough to they're getting to the point where they can probably beat quite a lot of the worst teams in the league. But I don't know. I still that we're deadly boring to watch half the time. We're not particularly good at anything. We're okay at a bunch of things, but we're not great at anything. We're not a great defensive side. We're not a good pressing side. We don't play particularly attractive football. We're not especially direct. There's nothing when you look at Arsenal where you're like, this is the thing that Arsenal excel at. There's nothing if you were an opposition coach that you'd be like, we have to stop Arsenal doing this thing, because that is just gonna. Is it there's nothing like that anymore because Arsenal don't have any outstanding weapons? Honestly, I don't really have an issue with Arteta. I don't really have an issue with the team that much at the moment. But I do sometimes just think, God, I would love to just bin this and get in Ten Hag or something.
I thought you were going to say Ten Hag.
Yeah, because you're just you know what? We'll play exciting, recognisable football. Under Wenger, and actually this is true of lots of teams. If you could, exchange all the players on the pitch for just grey, interchangeable models, so you couldn't see what team it was, you could still kind of recognise what team it was. In lots of cases, I think that's true. Under Pochettino, I think that's true. Under Wenger, certainly, you could see the way they want to play. Whereas with Arsenal, a lot of the time, I just think
what we do.
What is this? It's slow possession football. That's the one consistent thing. But Arsenal are often at their best when they play direct counter-attacking football. Arsenal don't press most of the time, but then occasionally they have games where they press really hard, against Villa the other day.
It was nuts.
And you're just oh wow, this is really effective. Maybe we'll start pressing from now on. I guarantee that we don't. I guarantee that at least one of the next 2 games will have like a passes per defensive action of like 20. And we just won't do anything. Like, it's this really weird thing where I constantly watch us.
Does that not scream that Arteta is basically still trying to figure out what his philosophy is, even though he's always been compared to Pep and all this kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's that he maybe like mixes and matches too much. Like, I think he's trying to be a guy like Tuchel, who's amazing at mixing and matching, or Ferguson, who was like the best at mixing and matching. And Arteta just isn't at that level. Plus, he just doesn't have the talent. But I don't know. Like, Arsenal are just like a completely like flavourless side to me. Like, I watch them and I'm just like,
haven't seasoned their chicken.
Yeah, I watch it and I'm just like, there's nothing on this. Like, there's no like pepper. Like, it's just football, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose, and I'm no longer really affected by whether we win or lose, really, unless there's like an outrageous like ref decision or something. Yeah. And that just says everything. Whereas like, at least in the Wenger days, I was just like utterly miserable when we lost. But even when we lost, we had something. You know, even when we lost, we did have something there. It's like, I can't remember who said this, but somebody said this about cinema. They were like, if you make a film for money and it doesn't make money, you're left with nothing. If you make a film for art and it doesn't make money, you're still left with art. And like, that's kind of the thing. Like, if your team is like, this is how we play, this is what we do, and it's not successful, then you're like, you know what? We still played the way we play. We still did what we do. Like, Arsenal at the moment, if they don't win a game, they've accomplished nothing. Like, so that's the kind of sad situation. Like, there's not a path to a better team here. There's nothing really like drastically improving. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll be like, let's press. But like 2 or 3 times under Arteta, we've had a really big pressing performance, a really good win, and then the next couple of weeks it just slips again into just like utter like anodyne mediocrity.
Well, you got Leicester on Saturday, which is going
to Vardy as well.
I don't know, to be honest with you, I'm not that impressed by Leicester, but like, and we beat them there last season like very handily when we were not in terribly good form. We beat them 3-1, and Pepe like absolutely gave nightmares to like the little English left back.
Oh yeah, I know who you Luke Thomas.
Nicely done.
Yeah, like classic, like Thomas Luke Thomas, like Justin James, whoever the it is. But like, yeah, I don't know. Could win it, could lose it. Probably will lose it, and I won't care. I just won't be upset if I miss the game. I won't be upset.
Oh, bless. Oh. Football should always care. You should always feel sad. You should always feel sad if your team loses. Yeah. It should ruin your weekend. That's
that is true. You should be like you should like get in arguments with girls.
Exactly. Fuming. You don't understand. You don't get it. Okay, moving on to our comment of the week then. Football Daily is 10 players struggling under the wrong manager. This came from Lade 212. We could put the whole PSG squad in.
Oh, burn.
Big shout out to Pochettino.
Did you write that, Diggs?
I didn't actually. Wow. I didn't.
Oh, fair. Who did?
What, what did you
oh, sorry. The script.
I know you didn't write the comment.
Right. Oh, yeah. I found the comments.
No, the script, the top 10. Did you write the top 10?
Oh, sorry. Players. I see what you mean. 10, what was it?
10 players struggling under the
No, I didn't write that. No.
Okay, was it McCubbin?
Oh, my God.
Henry
wrote
okay,
that.
well, anyway, a little dig at Pochettino. The other 10 players whose values are plummeting this season.
I did write that one.
Okay, and this came from Rowan Naval. Fun fact, Hazard, in 2.5 years at Real Madrid, has never played a minute of an El Clasico match.
Love that.
Good
stat.
A little interesting.
That is a fun fact.
Tidbit.
It's a bit sad, but it is a good stat.
It is very sad. Hazard's career after Chelsea brings a tear to my eye.
Good cash for you guys.
Yeah, indeed. Euro Football Daily, 10 clubs in serious decline from LB. It goes under the radar of how bad Southampton's owner actually is. Easily one of the worst in the league. Don't have any research about that owner. I can't quite back it up or not.
The squad has got pretty stale. So.
Yeah, he brought Livramento in. He's been very good.
For a cheap fee,
not necessarily the owner, though, is that maybe more the sporting director, I guess. Maybe we can have a look at that and get back to
Southampton explain.
But
why are they so boring?
That is... Actually, no, before we just end quickly, what's everyone doing for Halloween? Either tomorrow or Sunday.
What are you doing? You obviously want to tell us.
Saturday I'm going to 2 parties. Sorry.
Oh, my God.
One of them with Pat Nevin.
Showing my face at one of them, and then going to 2.
Is that Pat Nevins is showing your face?
Yeah, no, not Pat. It's another guy, JCC, the YouTuber. So if you know him, I'm going to his. Now that I live in West London, things going up for the Jello, but I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway,
where do you live now? You live in Chelsea.
I'm just about to move to. Do I want to Imperial Wharf?
You're
not
getting
going to be
closer to my
mobbed.
neck of
You're
the
not
woods.
Bieber. People aren't just going to turn up
You
in
never
Imperial
know.
Wolves
You
and be
never
like,
know.
is Zac
He
here?
is Bieber. He is the Bieber of Chelsea. That's exactly who you are.
No, so what about you guys? What are you doing?
I'm not doing anything spooky. I'm going to a friend's birthday party in a German beer hall.
You at least dressing up? Oh,
that's fun.
No,
but you putting the
Cats and Jammers in
are you putting
London
the
Bridge?
Lederhosen?
Yes. No, it's good.
You putting the Lederhosen?
No.
Lederhosen.
Lederhosen?
No, I don't have any Lederhosen.
Aye.
Maybe I'll bear. Is it called a Dirndl? The female version?
Dirndl.
A Dirndl, that's it, not a Dirndl.
That's it. I'm going as a one of the Ghostbusters,
Ooh.
but not
Which one?
No. I'm just going
Just
as
a generic
No,
Ghostbuster.
me
Oh,
as a
you
Ghostbuster.
were in the Ghostbuster. Got you.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah,
got
I
an
understand.
got an inflatable backpack and gun and all that. It's going to get popped 100%.
Is this is Coco's first Halloween?
Yeah,
we're
You're
having
gonna take a
Dressed her up as a pumpkin.
Oh my god.
We've actually got an outfit for her. Like she's going to be like Mexican Day of the Dead. So she's got she's got a little like onesie, like a black onesie that has a skeleton on it, which is ironic because she's really fat. And then she's got like a little flower crown. Like so, we're actually having round like a bunch of. Like we're in an antenatal group, and so we're having like everyone from our antenatal group round with their babies.
Oh bless.
Is it Day of the Dead themed? Is everyone coming as
it's
this?
just Halloween. Like, because also the problem with the baby is you're like, are we going to go and spend a bunch of money on this that she's never going to wear again?
Ever
It feels
again.
wasteful.
Yeah.
So this, like, she could wear a little skeleton onesie again. But yeah, so that's what we're doing.
Oh,
Sweet.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Hopefully, if you get any knocks on the door, you're going to give them sweets.
People don't really knock on our door. They never really
It's
have.
quite an American thing, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do people actually do that? I've never
When
done.
I was younger, I did it. I did
Really?
trick or treating. Yeah,
I've
when I
never
was
done
younger.
trick or
I did it
treating.
for my kids.
I lived in the vicarage when I was younger, so no one was like knocking on my door, being like, "Can we have sweets on Halloween?"
Yeah, growing
I'd
up
be
in
like,
Scotland,
"No,
I'd
you
have
can
had to
some
walk like
communion
I'd have
wafers."
had to walk like 20 miles, so it really wasn't worth it.
Oh my lord!
And
Well,
then they'd have been like,
no.
Absolutely not.
And you get like whatever Scottish. What's a Scottish sweet?
A Tunnock bar.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the chocolate you get. All right. Well, let us know what you guys are doing for Halloween and everything that we've spoken about in Sunday Vibe. Give us your opinions down there in the comments below. What's happening on Eurofootball Daily?
Good question. There's an explained about why Bayern Munich are so dominant, how they became so dominant in the Bundesliga, and whether they'll continue to be so.
And on the podcast channel, You,
great
Sam,
cue.
and-
Yeah, we talked about.
Ole. Ole.
Yeah, Jesus. I was like, what are you saying?
I was doing my Ollie impression. It was Norwegian Mancunian.
Yeah. So we had McCubbs on, who was like, obviously we needed like a Man United expert, and we basically talked over like the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer situation, but also we went through some of the, I guess like the bookies' favourites who to become Man United manager, and talked about them like as actual fits for the club rather than just like whether they used to play for the club. Which is what everybody else is apparently focusing on.
very, very good. Well, make sure you check that out. As I said, like the video, leave a comment, and also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Why not? Have a good day, guys. Goodbye.